Jackson Webb stood in the observation chamber of Stellar Ion Academy, watching hundreds of alien students engage in what would have been unthinkable just months ago, collaborative problem-solving without a predetermined answer. The Dronic students were working alongside Kellians, the normally rigid crystalline beings actually laughing, a sound like chiming bells, as they experimented with solutions that didn't match any textbook formula. It had started with a single assignment. Jackson, a 17-year-old human exchange student, had proposed a revolutionary concept to his advanced physics class: what if we don't know the answer? The Dronics instructor had nearly shut down the entire lesson. In 3,000 years of Dronics educational tradition, every problem had a solution. Every solution had been documented. Every answer was verifiable through the great archives. The idea of uncertainty was considered academic heresy. But Jackson persisted. What if, he had said, standing before the class, the best learning doesn't come from memorizing what others discovered, but from discovering things yourself? Even if you fail? The concept had spread like wildfire through the academy. Within weeks, students from species across the known universe were requesting Jackson's innovative teaching methods. The rigid structure of Stellar Ion Academy, a place where students had been organized by species, learning only what their collective had deemed appropriate, began to crumble. Dr. Vextera, the Academy's principal, watched this transformation with mixed emotions. She was a being of tradition, one of the few remaining administrators who remembered when education meant absolute obedience to established protocols. Yet she couldn't deny the results. Student retention rates had tripled. Graduation employment rates had increased by 240%. Most remarkably, cross-species collaboration, something that had been statistically impossible before Jackson's arrival, was now the norm. "This human is changing everything," whispered Ksek, her Kellian assistant, as they observed a group of students from 5 different species working together on an engineering problem. "Is that necessarily good?" "That," Dr. Vextera replied slowly, "is the question that will define the next era of galactic civilization." Jackson had started a movement he barely understood. He had introduced something called failure-based learning, the radical idea that students should attempt difficult tasks, fail, analyze their failures, and try again. Revolutionary. Dangerous. And absolutely effective. The breakthrough came during the Interstellar Science Symposium. Delegates from 47 different civilizations had gathered at Stellar Ion to evaluate the Academy's new educational framework. What they witnessed astonished them. Zentari students, traditionally trained only in mathematical computation, were now designing architectural solutions that blended aesthetics with function. The Quarians, empathic beings who had been relegated to counseling roles, were leading research teams in quantum mechanics. Even the notoriously conservative Dronics had produced 3 patent applications for technologies that broke from their established guidelines. One elderly Dronics representative, Coordinator Thek, approached Jackson during a break in the symposium. "Your methods are illogical," Thek stated. "They prioritize process over precision. They celebrate error." "Yes," Jackson agreed simply. "Because errors teach you something correct answers never will." Thek was silent for a long moment. Then, in a gesture that shocked everyone present, the ancient Dronics extended his primary appendage in a gesture of respect. "You have taught us that wisdom is not the same as knowledge," Thek said. "I am 173 years old. I have lived under the assumption that our way was the only way. You have shown me I was wrong. This is humbling." By the end of the symposium, every delegation had requested human educators for their home worlds. Earth's Ministry of Education suddenly found itself fielding requests from across the galaxy. Teachers, scientists, and innovators were volunteering to travel to alien worlds and share Jackson's revolutionary approach. But Jackson remained at Stellar Ion, where the real work was just beginning. He established the Institute for Collaborative Learning, a division dedicated to training educators from all species in these new methodologies. The resistance was fierce. Traditional academics argued that standards would collapse, that knowledge would become diluted, that chaos would replace order. Jackson's response was to show them data. Graduation rates. Job success rates. Innovation metrics. Patent generation. Cross-species treaties born from collaborative research projects. The numbers were undeniable. 6 months into his final year at Stellar Ion, Jackson was invited to address the Intergalactic Council of Education Ministers. He stood before representatives from 300 different civilizations, most of whom had never met a human before. Education, he began, isn't about storing information. It's about teaching people to think. To adapt. To create. To work together despite our differences. Every species in this chamber has survived by adapting. Yet we've built educational systems that punish adaptation and reward conformity. I'm just suggesting we align our teaching with our nature. The chamber erupted in discussion. Within weeks, legislation began changing across multiple worlds. Educational curricula started incorporating collaborative learning. Failure stopped being a mark of shame and became recognized as a step toward mastery. Jackson Webb had come to Stellar Ion Academy as an exchange student to study xenopedagogy. He was leaving as the architect of a revolution that would reshape how an entire galaxy learned. Not through conquest or force, but through the simple, human belief that everyone, regardless of species, deserved the chance to fail, learn, and become something greater than they were before.